There are moments in life when everything changes in a single breath. Moments when a person's world tilts so suddenly that they can't decide whether to run, freeze, or surrender to fate. For Rowan Hale, a quiet single dad who had grown used to blending into the background of life, that moment arrived the instant a stranger in an ivory blazer grabbed his hand in the middle of a glittering hotel lobby, pulled him into her warmth, and pressed her lips to his as if the universe were ending. That if you believe in kindness, second chances, and unexpected miracles, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Bright Hearts. It truly helps us keep creating beautiful stories for you. The day had begun with no hint of the storm to come. Rowan was simply delivering holiday decor orders for a luxury event, his side job to supplement the income he earned as a community carpenter. He had left his 7-year-old daughter, Marina, with his elderly neighbor, promising he'd return before noon so they could decorate their small apartment tree together. Money was tight, but Rowan had always found a way to make Christmas bright for her, even if it meant patching up furniture at midnight or delivering hand-carved ornaments door to door. He didn't belong in the grand Crystalton Hotel with its marble floors, gold-trimmed banisters, and towering pine trees sparkling like captured stars. But work was work. He was wheeling boxes toward the ballroom when everything shifted, the sound of heels clicking urgently, a breathless whisper, and then the sharp tug of his sleeve. She appeared like a flash of winter light. Tall, elegant, composed yet trembling beneath the surface. Her name, as he would later learn, was Serafina Luxford, the only daughter of the Luxford Empire, owner of the hotel, philanthropist, and heiress to billions. But at that moment she wasn't any of that. She was a frightened woman with urgency swimming in her eyes. She didn't ask him anything before she rose on her toes and kissed him. It wasn't a romantic kiss, not yet, a desperate one, hurried and trembling, as if she were using him as a shield. Behind her, two strangers, a sharply dressed man and an older woman, froze in shock. Rowan stood still, heart pounding like a runaway drum. He had no idea what was happening. Yet something in Serafina's grip told him she wasn't dangerous, just scared. When she pulled back, her breath shook against his cheek. Her eyes silently begged him for help. Everything in his life had taught him to walk away from other people's messes. He had enough of his own. But something about her gaze locked him in place. Something about the vulnerability she tried so hard to hide. Only later, after the shocked man and woman hurried off, Serafina explained in rushed fragments. They were distant relatives, people who had tried for years to pressure her into merging fortunes, alliances, and lives she wanted no part of. They had arrived unexpectedly with gossip-fueled assumptions that she was secretly engaged, rumors she had accidentally sparked months earlier to push away unwanted suitors. Rumors that had now crashed into reality. She had panicked. And she had chosen him. Rowan almost laughed at the ridiculousness of it. Him? A man who still counted change before buying groceries. But Serafina's relief quickly dissolved into embarrassment. She apologized profusely, offered compensation, tried to explain that she had acted without thinking. Yet she also said something he didn't expect. She needed his help, but only if he felt safe and comfortable. She would never pressure him. Her honesty disarmed him that he could have walked away. He nearly did. But when she spoke about the loneliness she felt, how people wanted her money, her influence, her name, but never her, something inside him cracked. He understood loneliness better than most. Since Marina's mother passed when Marina was still a baby, he had lived quietly, scraping by, holding everything together with little more than hope. S.O. Rowan, against every logical thought, agreed to help her. Only for that day. Only until her relatives left. That's what he told himself. But fate had its own intentions. Serafina introduced him to the relatives later that afternoon, her hand slipping into his naturally, though neither of them addressed the lingering tension between them. Rowan didn't have to pretend much. He was naturally gentle, observant, and sincere, qualities that made the relatives skeptical at first, but soon convinced them he had no ulterior motive. Meanwhile, Marina, waiting at home, wasn't forgotten. Rowan texted the neighbor to extend the babysitting just a little longer, promising he'd make it up to Marina with extra gingerbread later. What Rowan didn't expect was how easily Serafina blended into the moments with him. She laughed softly at his quiet jokes, listened to him speak about woodworking, and asked questions with genuine interest, not the empty politeness he associated with wealthy clients. He also never expected Marina to appear in the picture that very evening when Serafina insisted he stay for the tree lighting ceremony, which turned out to be a lavish event for the entire community. Rowan hesitated. He didn't belong at gala-like events. But Serafina smiled and told him that everyone belonged somewhere, and she had decided he belonged among people who genuinely saw him. Marina arrived in her small coat, mittens too big, eyes wide with excitement at the enormous Christmas tree. When Serafina knelt to greet her, something tender flickered behind her usual composure. Marina, who was slow to trust strangers, surprised Rowan by taking Serafina's hand almost immediately. It was as if the girl sensed something safe in her. The night unfolded with a strange kind of magic. Warm drinks, soft music, flickering lights, and the unexpected ease between three people who had met mere hours earlier. Rowan found himself relaxing, laughing, breathing differently, as if life had momentarily given him permission to stop carrying so much weight. But the world always circles back with challenges. The next morning, news erupted online. Photos of the lobby kiss, snapped by someone near the entrance, were already circulating. Headlines speculated about Serafina's secret romance and mysterious fiancé. She contacted Rowan immediately, apologizing and offering to hire a PR team to protect his privacy. Yet Rowan surprised her again. He wasn't angry. He wasn't panicked. He simply reminded her that kindness shouldn't be repaid with fear. He had helped her because she needed help. That was all. Serafina, for perhaps the first time in her adult life, felt someone stand beside her without asking for anything. But powerful families rarely let go easily. The relatives returned, this time demanding answers and legal clarifications. Their aggressive insistence triggered memories Serafina rarely spoke about. Pressure, expectations, a life planned for her before she was old enough to understand she had choices. That afternoon, Rowan watched her shoulders tighten, her voice sharpened defensively, her eyes dim beneath the weight she carried. He saw the woman behind the wealth, the woman who had never been allowed to simply exist, and in a moment of quiet courage, he placed himself between her and the storm. Not with harsh words, but with steady presence. He told the relatives that Serafina didn't owe them her life, loyalty, or future. She had the right to be free. He wasn't performing anymore. His conviction came from someplace deeper. Something shifted in Serafina then, like a breath finally released after years of holding it in. Over the next week, their connection deepened in ways neither expected. Serafina invited Marina and Rowan to community charity events, offering the little girl experiences she'd never had before: art workshops, storytelling circles, a visit to the rooftop greenhouse. And when Rowan saw how gently Serafina guided Marina's interests, never overwhelming her, always encouraging her curiosity, his guarded heart began to soften, but he still feared the divide between them. She was from a world he'd never fit into, and he worried his humble life would eventually make her regret getting close to him. Serafina, however, saw something different. She saw a man who valued people more than possessions, who raised his daughter with love instead of luxury, who brought out a version of herself she hadn't known existed. Then came the day everything threatened to crumble, when the Luxford board confronted Serafina about her relationship scandal, warning her that humanitarian contracts and partnerships were at risk. They suggested a temporary separation from Rowan to preserve the company's image. She stared at them with disbelief, then anger, then a pain that cracked her expression. Rowan overheard only fragments, but enough to know she was being pressured to cut ties with him. He prepared himself for the heartbreak he knew was coming. He convinced himself that this was expected, that their worlds were never meant to intertwine. But Serafina walked away from the board with her decision made. She found Rowan standing near the hotel garden, Marina beside him. And with the gentlest voice he had ever heard from her, she told them she was done living a life shaped by fear and manipulation. She chose truth. She chose freedom. And when she looked at Rowan, her eyes held a sincerity so deep it nearly stole his breath. She chose him too, if he wanted her. The moment she stepped closer, the winter sun filtering through the glass roof, her expression soft with vulnerability, Rowan felt something shift permanently in his chest. She wasn't the billionaire asking a stranger for help anymore. She was the woman who had found him by accident but stayed by choice. They didn't kiss immediately. They simply stood together, hands brushing, hearts unguarded. Marina slipped her small hand into Serafina's, sealing something wordless and beautiful between them. And for the first time in years, Rowan believed in new beginnings.